What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be continuing on with this series, taking a look at the older Battlefield games and what they did or didn't do well. And today we're going to be taking a look at one of my personal favourite Battlefield games in Battlefield 1 and discussing 3 things that I thought it did extremely well. If you haven't seen the other videos in this series, then be sure to go and check those ones out. So far I've covered Battlefield 5, and after this video I will also be covering what Battlefield 1 did poorly, as well as the same videos for Battlefield 4 and possibly Battlefield 3 if I can find the time. So if you're not already subscribed, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the rest of the videos, as well as plenty more Battlefield stuff on the way. Now anyway, getting stuck right into it, the first thing that I thought Battlefield 1 did really well was its map design. Battlefield 1 in my eyes has some of the most memorable and most loved maps of any Battlefield games that I've played. There are plenty that will forever be in my top 10 or even top 5, and it doesn't so much come down to how the maps look or anything like that, it's mostly the way that they are designed in terms of the lanes and the choke points and where the objectives are placed, among many other things. After playing so many hours of Battlefield 5 and then heading back to play a lot of Battlefield 1 in the last few months, I've realised just how much more I enjoy the Battlefield 1 maps almost across the board, as I'll be honest, the Battlefield 5 maps just really don't do it for me, other than a few here or there that I do actually really like. I think the main difference for me is just how each map flows, the amount of high traffic areas, and I guess just the versatility in each map as well, as some of the Battlefield 1 maps have an awesome mix of heaps of open, long range areas, while at the same time also having plenty of close quarters, chaotic sections as well, such as maps like Sinai Desert, Ballroom Blitz, and St. Quentin Scar, just to name a few. All of these maps just really allowed you to play pretty much however you wanted to play them. You could pretty much use any class that you wanted. You could play at long range or close range or even mid range as well on certain maps, and it just felt like there weren't really any maps that forced you to play in a certain way, unlike some of the maps in Battlefield 5. Now, on top of the actual layout and all of that, the maps did also look absolutely amazing. They were really unique from each other for the most part. There were desert maps, forest maps, urban maps, and with the DLC maps there were also some snow-based maps based in Russia, as well as all of the nighttime maps as well. It just felt like there was such an awesome variety of different maps. The other thing is that they really did feel super immersive and just looked exactly what I imagined World War I would look like, mixing beautiful landscapes with war-torn buildings and burned down sections of the map. It all just looked and felt exactly as it should have. St. Quentin Scar for me is the perfect example of what I'm trying to say, really. It took a really nice, beautiful landscape with green grass and a nice little village in the middle with some nice buildings and windmills and all that type of stuff. And then on the other side of the map, it was literally just like pitch black mud and just fire and artillery shells and blown up buildings. It seriously is one of the best looking and most immersive maps that I think I've ever played in any video game, and plenty of the other maps in the game are just the same as well. Overall, I just think plenty of the maps in Battlefield 1 were some of the best in the history of the franchise. Don't get me wrong, they weren't all perfect, looking at you Empire's Edge, but overall I think it was just an aspect of the game that they truly nailed, and a very important aspect at that. Now, moving on, the next thing that I thought they nailed for the most part was all to do with the overall balancing of the game. Don't get me wrong, balancing in multiplayer shooters is literally never perfect, and there were definitely a few things here and there in Battlefield 1 that definitely weren't perfectly balanced, but overall it just felt like the weapons, the maps, the vehicles, they were all fairly well balanced, at least at the end of the game's lifespan, and it made for a very enjoyable experience overall. One of the most frustrating things about FPS games is that they often are unbalanced and end up having certain weapons or tactics that are just so much better than everything else, which ends up with everyone else having to play the same way, and then at that point the game isn't really the game it was designed to be. It's just a small handful of weapons that get used or certain playstyles that allow people to do better, and it's not a true representation of the game that the developers tried to make. Well, to me, Battlefield 1 did feel like it was the game that the developers wanted to make because it was so well balanced. That's obviously not for me to say. I'm not a DICE employee, so I can't really confirm whether it was the game that they wanted to make, but it just felt that way, and it felt like it was exactly the game that they set out to make from the early days of planning it. The weapons and classes were all really well balanced for the most part. The vehicles weren't super OP like they can often feel in Battlefield 5. The maps didn't feel like one team had an advantage over the other or anything like that, and there was also the whole behemoth system to pretty much give the losing team an advantage, so it felt like they really did everything they could to make the game as balanced as possible. Compared to Battlefield 5, and not to be too negative about Battlefield 5, as I am honestly in love with that game again right now. I've been playing it a hell of a lot lately, but the differences between the balancing of Battlefield 1 and then the state of Battlefield 5, where the vehicles are probably a bit OP, there are prone AT rifles that can one-hit kill, and prone MMGs that aren't really that much different either. There are certain weapons that dominate, like the STG-44 and a few others. It's just a stark contrast really, and it makes me realise just how much I took the balancing for granted in Battlefield 1. 1. Now, the last thing on this list that I thought was done so well was all about the immersion. Immersion isn't the be-all and end-all for me in shooters, honestly. I prefer solid gameplay and a fun experience over a game that's super immersive, but when the game is really fun and then it is also immersive on top of that, that really adds to the whole experience. Obviously, in terms of realism, it's not all that immersive. Shooters are never immersive just because you can be shot and be absolutely fine 20 seconds later, but when I say immersion, I more just mean like in terms of feeling like you were truly a part of World War I. Like I touched on earlier, the map design was so immersive with how it looked and how it felt, but not only that, the weapons, the vehicles, and even the character models all felt really immersive as well. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love customization in video games. I love being able to choose how my character looks and all that type of stuff, but it was actually a pretty good change up for me personally that all of the characters in game were just genuinely World War I looking soldiers. There were no goofy outfits or anything like that, and for the most part too, even the weapon camos were pretty immersive, other than a couple of camos that were obviously like gold or a bit more colourful. But yeah, overall just every aspect of the game felt truly immersive. I think Battlefield 1 really showed me how important immersion can actually be in shooters. Honestly, in the past I've never really understood why people care so much about the immersion because, like I said, video games are never truly realistic, but Battlefield 1 did open my eyes to that a little bit, and I think moving forward I will definitely want a bit of immersion in most of the shooters that I play, so long as the game is still a good game, of course. I do hope that Battlefield 2021 will have a pretty immersive experience as well. I'm assuming it's going to be set in modern times or even slightly in the future according to these recent leaks, so it might be a bit harder to make it quite as immersive, but I'm definitely keen to see how they manage to pull it off. Anyway guys, that is going to do it for this one. Let me know down in the comments what you thought was done really well in Battlefield 1, or whether you agree or disagree with the stuff that I mentioned in the video. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new, then consider subscribing to the channel with those notifications on. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.